Welcome to the Heart of a Viking. This channel offers elementary art lessons taught by Mrs. Minto from the Cape Henlopen School District in Delaware. I look forward to virtually creating with you. There are new lessons posted weekly. Subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss a single one. So go grab your art supplies and your thinking caps and let's begin. Fourth grade artists, we are about to embark on my favorite fourth grade art project of the school year. It's a weaving project using textiles to create a piece of artwork that's actually usable is one of my favorite things to be able to do. So to get started with this project, make sure you have all the supplies ready and let's begin. We'll start by getting a piece of cardboard. Honestly, the size really doesn't matter. I like my cardboard to be taller than it is wide. This one is about 9 inches by about 4 inches across. Yours can be the same as mine, or you can make it a different size. It honestly doesn't matter. So I'm going to go across the thinner side, the 4-inch side up here, and using a Sharpie or a pencil, I'm going to use my Sharpie. I'm going to put a little mark at each inch. So I'm going to put a little mark above the 1, above the 2, and above the 3. The 4 is on the end, so I'm not going to mark the 4. Then I'm going to go back and mark every 1/2 of an inch. There we go. And then I'm going to realize, wait a second, that one was wrong, so I'm going to cross that out and make it right. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing on the other end. Don't flip it over, just turn it around. Every inch, and then every 1/2 inch. Perfect. Now I'm going to take my scissors and make little slices at each of those little marks. Just a little slice. It doesn't have to be super deep, just like that. Nothing should fall off. I'm not actually cutting away pieces. I'm just making little slices into my cardboard. And then of course you'll turn it around and do the same thing on the other side. Okay, now for this next part, we need some string. I like to use a thin string like this one, and you want it to be strong so that when we pull on it, it doesn't break. But any kind of string would work, even yarn. We're going to use yarn for other parts of our project, so it doesn't make it ideal for this part, but if that's all you have, yarn is better than nothing. So grab a piece of string or some yarn, and we're going to start warping our loom. That's what the step is called, warping the loom. So I'm going to start by taking the end of my piece of string and pushing it through the first little slice on my piece of cardboard and put a little piece of tape on there so it doesn't pull out. Okay, so this next part is tricky. It really is. It sometimes confuses me too. So even though I've done it a million times, I have to sometimes pause and make sure that I'm on the right track. So take your time, relax, ask for help if you need it, your grown-ups around you, or possibly just rewind the video and watch it a second time. That often helps me when I'm learning something new from a video too. So take your time, relax. If all else fails, just take it all out and start over. Weaving is so forgiving. It's so easy to just take out the strings and try a second time. All right, good luck, take your time, relax, and don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it. Now flip it back to the front, and we're going to stretch the string down to the bottom and put it through the little slice at the bottom, the very first slice, just opposite from where you were a second ago. Now flip the project over and go back to the top to the first little slice. So now I'm going to go across. This is different. I'm taking my string and going across to the second little slice. Now my piece of string is hanging out the back. So that means I need to go straight down the back, through the second slice, and then back up the front, down to the next slice. Just like that. Now I need to go across again, across here, across, down the front, up the back, across the top, down the back, up the front, across the top, down the front, up the back, across the top, down the back, up the front, and across, down, up, and that's it for me. So I'm going to stop right there, use my scissors to cut that piece of string, just like that, and then I'll use one more little piece of tape to tape down just the tail. It's hard to tell here. It looks like I'm taping down everything, but I'm only taping down just that little tail, not the first piece of string. Whoop whoop! You just warped your loom. That's what that's called. The step that we just completed is called warping the loom. So now that that's all done, you never have to do that again unless you start a new weaving. So now let's learn some weaving techniques. We need yarn for this next step. If you have a weaving needle that looks like mine, it's big and plastic and has a large eye on the end. If not, grab a piece of tape too. All right, let's get started with our weaving now. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is find a colored piece of yarn, and we're going to thread the needle. So this needle has a nice big eye, that's the hole at the top, and I'm going to push my yarn through the eye of the needle like that. Once I have that all threaded through, I'm going to take this little tail, wrap it over and under the piece of yarn and make a knot. Now, here's what's really cool. If you don't have a weaving needle like I do, we can simply use a piece of tape around the end of the piece of yarn like this. We're just going to wrap a piece of tape around the end of the yarn, and what will happen is this piece of tape will keep the piece of yarn from unraveling, which is a good thing. We definitely don't want that to unravel. So if you don't have a needle, use a piece of tape wrapped around the end of your yarn just like that. Okay, let's get back to our lesson. Let's take the weaving needle and we're going to do a regular tabby weave, which means it goes under, over, under, over, under, over across the front of our loom, just like that. Now I'm going to pull this all the way through until there's a little tail hanging out the end. Perfect, just like that. Little tail, under, over. Now I'm going to flip my weaving over and repeat the same thing on the back. Under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over. Okay, pull it all the way through. Pull it just tight enough so that it wraps around the side of the loom, just like that. And then flip back to the front. Now, this part is a little bit tricky. Now that we have the first row in, we have to start paying attention to the row that comes before. So I'm looking at my very first row here, and I'm noticing that I started by going under on that first row. So now that I'm putting in my next row, I have to start opposite. So I have to go over first and under the second warp thread, and then pull it through. Now that little tail is getting in the way, push him back out. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now back here, I have to do the same thing. I have to check to see how I started last time and do it the opposite from this time. Okay, and then pull it through just until that touches the corner. Now this time, I check the second row. Last time I was over, so this time I start with under. And I go under, over the whole way across. Pull through. Flip over, check the last row, and let's see how I was last time. I was under, so I'll be over this time. Okay, pull it through just until it loops around the corner there. Perfect. Flip over, and then check the previous row. I was under, so now I need to be over. Weave across, pull it through, just until it touches the corner there. Perfect. Flip it over, and guess what? I'm simply just going to keep doing this over and over, tabby weave, tabby weave, tabby weave, tabby weave, until I run out of this color. Okay, so you keep going. Make sure you always check the previous row and make sure that you are opposite every time. Okay, so now let's learn a new technique. This time I'm grabbing a different piece of yarn. This yarn is pretty cool. I have some yarn in the art room here that changes color. I know, it's like magic. So this one goes from blue to white, but I'm going to do the same thing I did last time. I looped it through the eye of my needle and I'll make a knot, or if you don't have a needle, remember put a little piece of tape around that end so it doesn't unravel. Now I'm doing the exact same technique with my new piece of string. So I started by checking how I ended last time. Last time I had gone, whoopsie, too far, Mrs. Minto. Last time I had ended with under, so I have to start with over. Now, what's really cool about weaving, always check how you ended last time. What's really cool about weaving, you don't have to make any knots anywhere except for on your needle if you have one. I don't have to knot those little tails that are hanging out the end. Later, we will deal with those at the end of the project, but for right now, I don't have to worry about those at all. I just let them hang out the side, and sometimes they cause problems like this, but I just let them hang out the side and I'll come back to them later. So right now, I just switched colors and I'm using a second piece of yarn to do tabby weave again. Okay, so this is where we're going to stop for today. We've learned tabby weave and we've used it with 2 different colors. So we're going to stop here, put your work somewhere safe, and next week when I post the weaving part 2 video, please join me to learn some new techniques. I can't wait to share sumac, Egyptian knot, and vertical stripes with you. All right, I'll see you back here next time at the Heart of a Viking.